Welcome to the Higher Performance Man podcast. I'm your host, John Fayocavitz. And on this show, I interview successful men who have built impressive careers and businesses. Founders, CEOs, senior leaders, and professionals have operated at a high level for years. We talk about what actually made them successful. And the goal is simple: to learn directly from the men who have done it so we can apply those insights to our own careers, our own businesses, and lives, and continue raising our own standard of performance. The show is sponsored by Prime Performance Method. The Prime Performance Method is designed specifically for high performing men who have achieved success in their careers but feel like their body and energy have taken a hit along the way. I help busy professional men regain strength, lose weight, and feel years younger within 8 weeks without long workouts, extreme dieting, or disrupting their demanding schedules. If you are a high performance man who wants to feel strong and energized as you are successful, message me at John Fayocavitz on LinkedIn. On today's show, we have John Murphy, the founder and CEO of Venture Management Consultants. Thanks, John, for joining us today.
Thank you, John. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And just to start, tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, I started Venture Management Consultants in 1988, so we'll be turning 38 years old this June.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been quite a ride, I'll say that. A lot of ups and downs, but just beyond my wildest dreams, John. And one of my tips for people is if you wait until you have everything figured out in terms of a plan, you'll never get on the road. So, the idea here is be very clear on your what and why it's important, and the how will show up along the way. It's kind of like a GPS system correcting. Anytime you take a wrong turn, it self-corrects. So as long as you know where you're going and why it's important, not just for yourself, but for the world,
Right.
The how is going to show up.
Okay, so what is Venture Management Consultants? What are you actually doing for is it a business that you go to, or is it individuals? What is basically?
Yeah, it's predominantly very large corporations and even the U.S. military. I've had people attend my workshops from all parts of the world. I've done events in China, Brazil, Argentina, all over Europe, the States, etc. And I didn't start out that way. I started out doing little local workshops. And I started the workshops because I was having trouble selling the business. So I decided instead of pushing it through sales, I'd pull it. And I'd use attraction. And so by forming a workshop and getting companies to sign up and come, it created pull. And so then they'd pull me into their organizations. I'd train the executives. It's predominantly change mastery. So change before you get exchanged, if you will. And so I teach operational excellence, Lean Six Sigma, strategy, a lot of leadership development work, really about high performance. So,
Right, just like the podcast. Do you have employees, or are you a solo?
No, my model is I use their employees. So I've kept my model very lean over the years. I have a network of experts. And so if I need assistance, particularly with multinational billion-dollar corporations, which I've worked with,
Right.
I bring in the network. But the whole idea, John, is I go in and starting with the executives, I train them on the tools and the methodologies and what's to come and how they can deploy it successfully and support it. And then they pick their we call them high potentials. These are up and coming, very intelligent leaders. I train them, and then we run Kaizen events, which are rapid change events. So they change culture dramatically fast. I mean, the way we do things around here is culture, and we change the way we do things around here very fast into really high performing systems and processes. And then I leave after a couple of years, and I leave behind people, students, so to speak, who are now CEOs of major corporations.
Wow.
And so like I said, I've been doing it for almost 40 years.
Right.
Some of my students have really advanced. And by the way, that's led to a lot more business, because if they become senior level executives and then they leave to become an even more senior, like a CEO, they'll often call me to say, "Hey, Murphy, come in and help us out here. We've got some dysfunction going on and we need to lean things out." So it's just built, John, over the years.
Right.
And
So
I've just I've
be,
just self-corrected along the way.
being that you've been in it for so long, 38 years, okay, what do you think the biggest lesson is that you've learned that made you become successful? What is that? Is there one thing or is it a bunch of things that are on top of each other? Or,
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I share this a lot. And that is number one, commit to being a lifelong learner and surround yourself with brilliant people. You want to be brilliant and you want to be super successful, pay attention to people who already are. Listen to them. And in this day and age, John, when I was getting started, we didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones. There was no YouTube. There was no Google. So how did I learn and surround myself with brilliant minds? Books, um, conferences. I put everything I could into learning best practices. By the way, not just business best practices, but health and well-being best practices.
right.
So I just had my internal age tested and I'm 33 at the
Wow.
cellular level. I'm half my actual age. So, and there are different tools and things to do along those lines. What I've also learned is a lot of the tools and problem solving, root cause analysis tools I teach businesses are perfectly applicable to the human body, the
Hmm.
mind, everything, our social relationships, our
Right.
financial uh, capability, everything. So I've integrated a lot of what I teach into my own practice. And
Good.
I just and it's remarkable. And so when I'm teaching some of these tools to black belts and experts and things like that, as a homework assignment, I'll say, go home and use this, rational problem solving model on something you've got going on at home. Do the
Right.
root cause analysis, do something like that. And they come back and they've learned it at a deeper level, a very personal level. And that's
Right.
that's that's stuck. So in
That's
this
great.
day and age, listen to podcasts, listen to these shows, listen to people,
Right.
read what you can read, just learn.
Right.
And I'm doing it to this day. I'll do it until the day I'm gone.
Well, they say if you stop learning, you're done.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
I
And
mean,
and this
that's
and when I
something.
s- Yeah, when I say brilliant minds, I'm talking about people who died 50, 60 years ago. It
Right.
doesn't matter because they left behind a legacy of tips
Right.
and strategies. So whether they're living or gone, I mean, invite them into your car while you're driving to work. And the
Right.
other advice I'd say to people is commit time to productive activity, not just activity. Don't confuse productivity with activity because
Right.
there's a lot of people super busy and they're watching all kinds of nonsense on TV or on social
Right.
media. Look, if you really want to do well with your life and your career, prioritize time to advance in those
Yeah.
ways.
And let it be productive, like you're
Uh,
saying.
exactly. And it's productive if it's moving you toward your vision.
Something else, right? If you're stagnant every day and you're not getting better each day, then you got to reevaluate.
Exactly. And you're constantly self-correcting,
You
so
know,
to speak.
and that's what
It's
I'm
like,
doing in my business. Okay, with my clients that I try to help get healthier and lose weight or whatever their goal is that if you're not going and reaching that and going one step at a time and you're just stagnant or going backwards, you're not going to reach your goal.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
I even use the term micro goals because sometimes
mhm.
we set these
Too
gigantic,
big of goals. Right.
yeah, and then you go home at night or you get in bed at night, you feel like, well, I didn't hit my goal.
Right.
Well, break it down. And so I have daily goals.
That's perfect because a lot of people, when I ask them what their goals are, you know what the first thing it says? I want to lose 50 pounds. Well,
Yeah.
there's no one day or 2 weeks you're going to lose 50 pounds in. You got to take the increments. You got to take the 5 pounds and then go and build it from there. And, you know,
Well, yeah, and I'll add to that because this is critical of all of the different. I use a tool called the IPO, input, process, output. If one of your outputs is you're 50 pounds overweight, other outputs, by the way, could be I'm in debt, I'm broke. I could be I'm in a lousy relationship that I don't know what to do with.
Mhm.
So Those are outputs. We call those UDs, undesirable effects, and they're both in business, like customer complaints, or they're at home. There's something going on. So now we do root cause analysis to find out what the critical inputs are. And that could be things like, what are you eating? What are you doing? Things like that. But most of all is, what are you thinking? Mindset is most of all what important.
Absolutely. That's the first thing I got to change usually.
You just gave an example of it. If somebody says, I want to lose 50 pounds, energetically, they just said, I want to gain 50 pounds.
Yeah.
Energetically, and everything's energy. When you think of the word not, or I don't want, the field, this is energy, this is Einstein, this is Tesla,
Yeah.
these are physicists, not philosophers. The field responds in kind. So if you're thinking, I want to, or I need to lose 50 pounds, it's saying, you're right. And forever, you're going to want to lose 50 pounds because you're not going to.
Right.
So
Exactly.
one subtle shift in mindset would be, my target weight
is right.
is X.
Yep.
Now it's positive, and every day you're doing something to get to
right. And
X.
what steps do I have to take to achieve that target? That's
exactly.
And that's in everything. And that's in everything. That's in life. You set targets and goals, and you can't be a millionaire in a week. Okay. It's something you got to build, and something in the process that you have to go through. Okay.
That's right. And if you approach it from an energy of lack, like I'm lacking money, I'm lacking fitness, I'm lacking a nice,
it's
healthy
a negative
relationship.
vibe.
Yeah, you're attracting more lack. Misery loves company, right? So you're asking for more of what you don't want. You're actually asking for more of it. So I teach not just business best practices, but mindful best practices.
Awesome.
Where the mind changes, and that changes everything. So, think about this, John. You've probably seen this in your line of work. You see people on a treadmill or, an elliptical or doing some form of exercise, which you'd think is healthy, and it's not.
No.
Because while they're on it, they're watching some trash show, or they're reading some trash book, or they're listening to some trash music, and they're thinking, I am fat and I need to lose weight. And by doing aerobic rather than anaerobic exercises, they're training their body to hold on to fat for the next big marathon. It's like
you got
completely.
It.
So I love this quote.
It's like are you a personal trainer too?
No, but I've researched it for a very long time. I was an athlete. I played football at Notre Dame. I went through a number of rough times, and so I learned fitness and training from when I was a kid.
That's awesome.
But I also learned a lot of the wrong things, because a lot of the, let's say, wrong things are marketed as healthy.
John, I can go on. I can do a podcast I can't even tell you how long I can go through with all the misconceptions and myths that are out there. And it's all driven by money and marketing. Everything is driven. I mean, you turn on the TV, or you go on your feed, or you go on Instagram, you go on all these. I see thousands of different creatine things and thousands of vitamin D's. And, it's endless. And people, I can see why they're confused. Okay. Yeah. Because they're getting bombarded with everything that's false. Okay. Just to drive it. But they do it in a shiny way, is what I call it. A shiny object. They market it that way, thinking that you're going to get that. And it just doesn't happen.
Well, and this is also why I say be committed to a lifelong learning, and do your homework, do the research. Right. So I lost my father 26 years ago to chemotherapy. A lot of people would want to call it cancer. Yeah. And I lost my mother recently. She was advanced Alzheimer's. So what I did, John, is years ago, decades ago, I turned my attention to alternative methods, things, that are radically different than what our medical establishment in America sees. Right. Okay. Right. And everything from nutraceuticals to electroceuticals. I do electroceutical training every day. Good. People don't even know what that is, but it's the body's predominantly electrical.
Right.
the electromagnetic
Yep.
field from the heart, the electrical neurons activity in the brain. We're electrical beings, not chemical beings.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Things like that. So I researched a significant, I still do. Um, and people, I'm not a fitness expert or a health professional, other than my own experiment.
Mhm.
And people will ask me, they'll be surprised at my age, and they'll ask me like, how do you do it? And I'll share some tips, and they'll say, I don't even know what that is. What's earthing? What is
Yeah.
earthing? You know?
Touching your feet on the ground, man. Yeah, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
sunlight.
I'm actually earthing right now, believe it or not. I've got
Are
a
you?
earthing. Yeah.
That's good.
This this little wire goes right into the grounding outlet in your
Cool.
and so while I'm sitting here barefoot, um, I'm touching the earth.
Good.
Uh, and I've got grounded bed sheets. So simple little things like that, because when you touch the earth with your bare skin, it has to be with your skin.
Absolutely does.
Your body is flooded with electrons looking for mates, so to speak. It's improving blood circulation dramatically. It's reducing inflammation, which is the root cause to all kinds of problems, and it's basically flushing you clean.
Hmm.
And yeah, the experts, and I've met the author of the book Earthing, Stephen Sinatra, at a conference. He's a cardiologist, and anyway, it was an amazing event, and this was 15, 20 years ago. And not only did I buy these types of things, but bed sheets. I sleep grounded all night. And because the body's electrical, and these electrons neutralize free radicals in the body, which are not healthy for the most part, it's a simple tool and
Yep.
inexpensive. Because a lot of people, I grew up in Michigan. I'm not going to go out and walk around in the snow and bare feet in the winter, you know. You
Right.
don't actually, unless you have a concrete floor in your basement, you go down and put your feet on the concrete floor, which some
Right.
people could do.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, So it's little secrets like
Yep.
that, and I share them openly. Why wouldn't I,
Right. Absolutely. Um, my next question I want to ask, you're very successful in your business and you've been doing this for a long time. But I've heard from other people when we're doing our podcast and going through things, there are other areas of their lives have suffered. Have you ever experienced that? And if you
Yeah,
like if
well, yes. So I have. So like first of all, I'll talk physically. Physically, I've had major, uh, injuries. Ran my foot through a lawnmower
oh,
I had a C7 discectomy. I had to have a piece of my hip fuse my spine. I've had head trauma, diagnosed with epilepsy. I
oh
used to
my
have
goodness.
seizures up on stage. It was, so yeah, so physically and mentally, I've had some challenges there. One of the tools I do now is neurofeedback, which is brain training, um, which I highly recommend. And I do oxygen training every week. I do cold plunges. I
I
go
was
into,
just gonna ask, cold plunge is
yeah,
the thing right now that shocks the body, which gets it.
yeah.
Yep.
I go 15 minutes in 48-degree water, in and out of an infrared sauna at the same time. So in an hour, I do
Well, you
hot,
got
cold,
all the
hot, cold,
bells and
hot, cold,
whistles, all the good things. I like it.
all kinds of stuff. And I'll say another one that's most important is meditation. So I
Oh,
teach a number of meditation
yeah.
practices. I
Stress.
do it every day. Yeah. So I don't have any stress. I
Good.
actually don't have any doubts about anything. No worries, nothing, because I've learned how to clear it. I've written books about it. I've got 20 books published on some of this stuff. So I'm my own experiment. Socially, I've been through two divorces because energetically, when you ascend to higher and higher levels of consciousness, people who don't come with you, it's oil and water. It's kind of like music. I'll say you might love certain kind of music and hate certain other kind of music, right? Because music is frequency. And so no matter how hard you try to like a type of music you just don't like, I mean, you can try and try, it just doesn't resonate. and the type you like might not resonate.
Right.
So a lot of relationships are frequencies that don't match any longer. Maybe they did at some time, but now they've grown apart. And no matter how hard you try to truly love and appreciate your mate, you don't.
Right.
It's just they drive you crazy. I'm with people all the time that bitch and complain about one another, and it's just a very uncomfortable energy. So yeah, I've been through relationship challenges.
So you
I've
you
lost jobs. I actually I lose my job every year or two
right.
because it's designed that way.
Okay.
You know,
So
yes,
what steps did you take to go through? Was it the meditation that got you through a lot and all that, all the things that you're doing now that keeps you grounded?
and it's recognizing the power of energy and the
Mhm.
mind.
Right.
Okay. And it's about controlling the mind, not letting the mind control you. People don't know the difference. Most people are controlled by their mind, which is telling them to be afraid in certain situations, to feel bad, to feel grief, to feel angry. And so that's just who I am. I'm just an angry person. I'm just sad. I'm just, my whole life's been a mess. And they've accepted the
Accepted
identity
it.
of sadness.
Right.
Wrong. No, you don't have to accept that. You're letting your mind control you. And I often say when somebody says, I changed my mind, who is the I actually saying that? And that's your true self. So when you understand who you truly are and how powerful you are, how powerful we all are, and you say to the mind, the ego essentially is what you're saying, look, I'll listen to your bitching and complaining about what I should be worried about or stressed about or feel bad about. And then I'm going to let that go, and I'm not going to choose that. I'm not going to be. Here's a quick story, John. I was going through my first divorce, 26 years of marriage, 4 kids, absolutely in love with my wife and my family. And she decided, um, for reasons I won't discuss, that
Yeah.
she needed to go another way. And I was brokenhearted. Moved out of this beautiful waterfront home, 7 bedrooms, just all kinds of fun toys and things, to a little apartment. I called it my fortress of solitude. I went through a deep transformational experience spiritually. And one day, my older sister called me up and she said, what are you doing? She was worried about me. Said, what are you doing? And I told her the absolute truth at the time. I said, I'm dancing. She said, you're dancing? Who are you dancing with? I said, me, because I was actually dancing. She she's like, but her idea was you should be feeling sad, sorry for yourself. You should be sad. You should be. I had finance papers all over the floor with practically no furniture because I was going through a messy divorce and having to produce all kinds of financial stuff. And I lit some candles, put some music on, and I just started to dance. That's what I'm saying, John, is that's the power
Yeah.
that
Of
we
the
all
mind.
have of the
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
I choose not to feel sorry for myself. I choose not to feel revenge. I choose not to feel angry. Um,
Well,
I don't have to. But here's another important teaching, because I've been very into spiritual teachings now for decades. Zen, for example, the
yeah.
Tao. Okay. Um, and one of the Zen teachings is whenever a feeling is coming to you from the mind, let it in the front door, let it out the back door, but don't invite it for tea if it doesn't feel good. So, but don't lock the front door. Don't try to
Yeah.
pretend you're not afraid or anxious if you are.
Right.
Don't lock out grief if someone just passed who you love. Don't fight it. Let it in, allow it, process it, and then say goodbye. We all have the power to do that if we're mindful enough to realize it. And so you asked about how I got through a lot of this stuff. That's how I got through it.
That's great. That is awesome. Well, I tell you, the audience is going to learn a lot from this podcast.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much, John. great answers. I mean, like I said, they're very insightful. Okay. And I know people, if they watch this podcast, are going to take a lot from it. Okay. So
Yeah.
with that, I'm going to end this, and I want to thank you for joining us on the High Performance Man podcast. As a reminder, this show is brought to you by the Prime Performance Method, where I help high performing men rebuild strength, energy, and confidence without sacrificing their careers. If you're ready to feel as strong in your body as you are successful in your business, again, message me at John Fayocavitz on LinkedIn. Until the next episode, perform strong in all your areas of life.